podcast ever. Called Off the Grid. Just a podcast that's not on the internet at all.
Right.
Just saved in audio files on Andy's computer.
Can't listen to it?
No.
You'd have to... Yeah, how would you listen to it?
I wonder... there's got to be a podcast out there somewhere that's like those old like speakeasies where you have to know like the password or the knock or whatever.
You can't listen to it until you have to like the capture thing. Prove you're a member.
Right.
Prove you're not a robot.
Tell us how many of these pictures have stoplights in them, or something like that.
I went to my first speakeasy like last month.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where?
Was it Capone's?
Oh, yeah.
Capone's
is
sounds
tight.
like the name
Yeah.
for a speakeasy. It's a little bit low hanging.
Pretty
fruit,
good.
But...
I have a beef with that. Not with Capone's necessarily, but I had a lovely dinner the other day at the 794 Kitchen.
Where's that?
It's in Muskegon. That building that's off of Pine. I don't know if you guys are with like Rake and Aldea, isn't it? I think. Had a lovely dinner with Jordan the other day out there, and I got there. I held the door open. I saw this old lady. She's walking with a cane, like cane and all. And I see this old lady walking. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to get the door for this old lady so that she's like, able to walk through this door easily.
Yeah.
So I opened the door, and I didn't do it so that she would say thank you. But like, she just walks right in. She just like walks, doesn't really say anything. Then she turns to me. I'm like, oh, here it comes. Okay, thank you. Cool. And then she's like, do you know where Capone's is? And I was like, yeah, it's right down the hall right there. It's a door at the end there. And then she just turns around and starts to like hobble over to Capone's. And I'm like, the fuck, lady? Like, why did I hold that door open for you if you're not even going to acknowledge it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, man, that's like it's a test, man.
Yeah, I guess it really says more about me. Like, I expect to be thanked for doing a good deed, I guess.
It's nice,
But
you went out of your way to,
Yeah.
make this little lady's life a little bit easier.
Right. Well, I was raised in an era where, like, on television, you watch somebody, like, help an old lady across the street or whatever, and some people thought that was nice. That was a nice moment, But
yeah, my mom is like, she'll be the first one to walk up to a door, but she'll wait for me to open the door for her. Like, I'm behind her, and I, grab the door and just...
See, I disagree with those people, too. I don't know. Those people are...
I'm the person that always,
not car doors, but,
I always race up to the door and try to, get it before the other person.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think...
And then I try to squeeze in and get the next one, usually.
See, I feel like there's this ongoing debate, though, that people don't want the door held open for them, because then it makes them feel weird, like they have to run to the door.
Right, it's like that
understand?
distance that's like...
Yeah. Where like you not only
How
have
far
to
is too
decide.
far?
That's the thing. Like, do I hold the door for 45 seconds until this person who's like 3 miles away gets up to the door?
So like my whole thing with that too is like I'm, an anxious person generally, and like, oh, you're holding the door for everybody. It's so I don't have to go in first. It's like we're going to like, oh, how many people you got at the restaurant? 5. But I don't want to be that person. So I'm holding the door so everyone walks in, and I'm like just following everybody at that point.
Right.
Then if there's some funny business going on in there, then you're in the back. You can take off quicker.
True.
Yeah.
I guess you had to have to be in charge of the cutoff point, right? Because people will take advantage of you. They'll say, oh, this guy's holding the door.
The restaurant just hires me, and I just open the door for everybody.
Right.
Doorman.
Yeah. But you'd be like one of those guys that just does it out of the kindness of his heart. Like you go to like Steak and Egger on a quick Saturday or Sunday morning brunch.
So I volunteer, so I give back.
Oh, I just come here on Saturdays. This is what I do. I don't work here. I'm not even getting breakfast. I just want to hold the door open for people. Give them a greeting. That is interesting. I never really think about the idea of a person that's job is to say hello,
Oh, yeah.
Like, who came up with that idea?
Oh, like the greeters at Walmart or Meijer or whatever.
Or just like somebody at the door. Like, and they've gotten lazier as the years have gone on, too, it seems like.
It seems like everybody's probably like, a little bit disassociated, like being in their phone, on their phones now, or just not really. Where before it's like, oh, I'm walking up, there's a person here, I'm going to talk to them. But there's all this stimuli now.
Right.
Part of me kind of thinks that there's an alternative purpose to it as well. Like as far as like Walmart goes, you always have someone at the door. So then like someone tries to steal something, then there's an employee right at the door.
Yeah.
There's probably other reasons, but
Yeah, I think Well, I have my earbuds in when I go into somewhere.
Yeah.
And every single time I'm just like, I like to guess what they say to me because I could see them go like this. I don't know what they say, whether they say hello or have a nice day or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I feel like a solid answer is just be like, thank you.
Right.
Even if they say, how are you?
Hey,
Like,
your fly's down.
yeah. I mean, it's a generic enough where if it doesn't make sense, at least we'll probably get a laugh. You know what I mean? But it's just, it's just a silly idea of a job to me. But you gotta make money somehow, I guess.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they want to just, it's all about, like, the brand, too. Just, like, Walmart wants people to feel welcomed and that they're valued. And so it's like, hey,
Right.
how's it going? Welcome.
Welcome.
I wonder if they ever get like a secret shopper thing, right? Like this, you know how like that's a
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
You have the secret shoppers. Do you think that people going in, like if they're the secret shopper, if they're not greeted by the person greeting them, or like they come off as a weird greeter, you know, like that affects the store score?
It
You know
does.
what I mean? Like, does it?
Yeah.
You think so? How
I
often
know
do you
so.
think it's a person that works there that's like a rat or something? You know, like they get
It's
like they
possible.
flip them and they're a
It's
snitch now. You know,
It's a third-party company, so I mean, they could work for both. Well,
Weird.
actually, I think there's some rule in there where you can't like shop at a store that you are like currently employed at or something like
Weird.
that.
Interesting.
Yeah, because when I worked in retail, they would randomly come in and we kind of like looked into it and everything. Like, hey, what if we could do it and like just pick and choose like our store, and then we can like rate our store really good.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't work
Conflict
that
of
way.
interest a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
I could see that. That's the one thing I can't stand for is conflicts of interest.
That's where you draw the line.
100% against conflicts of interest. I guess. I don't know. This has been great banter. This
Yeah.
might be the best banter we've ever had. Jesus Christ. I think it's been amazing. Hell yeah. Well, shit. Thank you for being on the
Of
podcast.
course, dude. Yeah, thank you for having me out again, dude.
Yeah. Welcoming you back. First time in the studio.
Yeah, I like the digs,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. It's been great. We got this guy to thank for it.
Yeah, dude. You seem like a nice addition to the podcast.
Yeah.
I've listened to a couple episodes.
Nice.
Where you're a part of it now. It's good shit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice. Well, okay. We kind of touched base on it before we started recording, but last time we were together, we were in my apartment recording, just chilling, hanging
Yeah,
out, sitting
yeah.
down through the phone, I think is
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
recorded on. And it was pre-pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to think about. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if that was the last time I saw you.
I think it
before
was.
the pandemic happened.
Because I think it was in like September, I think I looked.
Yeah.
That's when it came out anyway.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't remember when we actually. But yeah, man, I think that was the last time I saw you.
Because, yeah, there's been...
It's crazy how, like, the time has been. It's felt so long and yet so short.
Right.
At the same time.
Yeah, it just sort of kind of flew by in a way.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, I live in a whole different apartment now. So anything that happened in that apartment just feels like it was ages ago.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But even then, what have you been doing? I mean, what's
Yeah.
been up in the pandemic? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I was largely unaffected by it from like a job standpoint.
Sure.
We just kind of went fully remote at the studio I was working at. And so from that standpoint, it was a little frustrating because all my friends are in like the service industry and they're just like chilling, making all this money off unemployment and stuff. And I was like, well, I still have to like design shit and be a member of society. This is fucked up. All jaded and stuff, but you know, I think it was still fine. I think like, yeah, I'm generally a pretty like closed off person and introverted, and so I don't really go out a lot anyway. So it was really, I was fine with that like adjustment of like, oh, now you should not go out. I was like, I can do that.
right.
But yeah, just kind of hold up in my house I was living at the time and making beats and
Nice. Are you still in Lansing?
yeah. I'm on a different
that.
spot now than the beginning of the pandemic, but yeah, I live with Nick Richardson now
Oh,
and
cool. Nice.
and Devin still. Yeah, we live on like the west side by the airport,
Oh, okay.
so it's a pretty short drive out here, which is nice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. When you were still working, obviously remote, but while you're working, did it hit you that you had become an essential worker? Like, did that make you feel like
Yeah.
it gave you a little more purpose, maybe?
I mean, maybe it might have been the like anti that because it's like, I mean, like nobody really needs. I mean, I guess people do need good design work, but at the same time, it's not essential in a pandemic to like,
Right.
you know, we got to make sure this brand identity gets rolled out. You know, nobody's like, that's not like, oh, people are gonna die or like, you know.
Right.
But
your point just now makes me think of another thing. So I'm going off on a tangent here, so bear with me.
I love tangents.
When it comes to like advertisement in like a brand, what I think is interesting about the pandemic is like Lysol had to come out with ads eventually
Yeah.
where they acknowledge the existence of COVID and how their products can help, like, you know, detain
Right.
the germs or whatever from COVID.
Yeah.
But they had to do it in a way where they weren't like, yeah, buy our stuff, man, and then COVID will go away. You know, they had to find a way where it was tasteful.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And I just think that's interesting. Like, so you're coming up with like this, or coming up with this point where it's like this like brand identity. It sort of feels unnecessary in the moment.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's like this idea that had to be a real thing for some companies, especially ones that were like beneficial.
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
Taking care of the pandemic. Just
yeah.
think it's interesting.
No, for sure. Yeah, it was interesting too, like seeing after like the first, I guess, wave and all this stuff, we're seeing ads on TV where like people are wearing masks and all this stuff. It's just kind of like weird. And I was like, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you still don't even like, you know, I'm in a crowd of people now and I'm just like, somebody coughs, I'm like, whoa. Like,
right.
It's kind of crazy how much it's just kind of like flipped your mentality about just like sickness, I guess, in general.
Right. Yeah, and I think about it. I think I saw something where some company referred to COVID as like a seasonal like disease or like it was basically a seasonal flu.
Right.
And I'm like, is that how we're looking at it now? Like it's been so long where we're just like, nah, fuck it. I don't even, it's just like the flu. Like where now, like that used to be something that people would say and it would stir up this controversial debate. And now it's like, no, everyone's saying that now. It's just whatever. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I heard that like towards the beginning, like when was it? It hit like in the summer or whatever, and they said once winter comes, it'll go away, and I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah. Who knows? It's probably like, dude. I don't have a lot to say really, I guess, but
Well, we don't have to dig through the wormhole that is COVID after 2 years of it.
But yeah, that's the
being
thing.
around.
It's like, everybody's just ready to put it to bed, even though it's still like a very real thing. But everybody's got pandemic fatigue, like for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of makes you. Doesn't it kind of make? I swear we're gonna get off this pandemic bullshit here in a sec. But doesn't it kind of make you think about the other diseases that have come through, like in our lifetime? And I'm not even talking about like way, way, way back before we were born, you know, and all those diseases, but like mad cow disease or like the swine flu. I feel like there was one with birds at one point too, bird flu or some shit like that.
Birds aren't real.
Yeah. Exactly. No, but
That's the can of worms I want to get into.
it seems weird. It feels like there's been so many and they came and went, you know, or like Ebola. When's the last time you heard somebody got a case of Ebola? You know what I mean? It's been a while.
Yeah.
Like I feel as though maybe it was during the Obama presidency when the last time somebody got Ebola. So it's like, where did that go? You know?
Yeah.
How do we get rid of that so fast?
Science, bro.
Yeah. Science. We're not so good at
But
science.
no, I mean,
no
it's
more,
probably still happening. It's just not in the mainstream.
Right.
Like Ebola, that's nothing compared to whatever is happening now.
Yeah.
COVID, Ukraine, all this shit.
Yeah. I don't know how we got started on this tangent. I immediately went on a tangent about advertising, and then here we are now. Goodness. Ugh.
Lysol, man. Lysol.
99.9% of germs.
Right. That is interesting. I wonder if there's a person out there who uses that to their advantage. Like, you know, those people that, like whoever that was that sued Red Bull because they didn't really get wings. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they sit down and do the science of it and they're like, yeah, well, I had this thing and it only killed 99.7% of the germs that are on it. So pay me my money back or whatever.
Right.
Or pay me for the traumatization of not killing all of the germs.
I got super sick off that 0.2%.
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't be
might.
surprised.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody's tried to exploit that
So
loophole.
let's get down to it because I feel like we're getting off in these tangents here. Who knows what
What's
the fuck we're
wrong
gonna
with
do?
that?
We're just conversing, dog.
I know. That's what this is. It's just a conversation. But I would like to talk to you a little bit about music.
Of course, man.
Obviously, that's where we come from,
Yeah.
So the last time we talked would have been, or I should say the last time we recorded an episode, I believe this would have been 2019, probably.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. If I'm remembering correctly, at the time, Secret Grief is still
Yes.
pumping, but not really
Yeah.
in the way of which it
Right,
had
right.
been.
Yeah.
You guys are like recording things and still like, writing together probably, but
Yes.
nothing major or really like,
Yeah. Well, I think at that point Scott had moved to Long Island.
had he been out at that point?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's hard to remember. But I think because Scott and I have always kind of really stayed in close contact, and yeah, we just got to make some music. I don't even know when it was. Yeah, Timing is Illusion, but it was a while back. But yeah, Secret Grief we're starting to do more things, and we have he's going to be back home at the end of May, and we're doing like a live session at Eureka with Tyler and a bunch of other people, and
Nice.
yeah, and we're like picking a certain number of songs from like the seasonal EPs and like remastering those and releasing that, and then we have the new stuff we just did, which is it's just like a 5-song. It was kind of like the same thing we did the seasonal stuff, where Scott was like, "I'm only here for like 5 days. Let's make some music." And
Nice.
so yeah, him and Tyler had a couple ideas. I was busy the first I think couple days or one day, and then just went in there and yeah, it's just like riding a bike, man. It's super cathartic making
Yeah.
music with those guys, and yeah, I'm really proud of what we made. And it's funny because we're all just kind of like leveling up with like, me and like my music production is just general music knowledge, and then Tyler with his like engineering chops, and like having that studio is just huge, and it's cool to be able to like, yeah, fire on all cylinders and really
Right.
just crank some shit out.
It kind of seems like you've sort of assembled like a dream team.
Yeah,
so to speak.
I would call it that for sure. It feels like I'm a part of a dream team.
What would you say is like the driving force behind that? Because I mean, I've seen it since it was, y'all plus Corey, Sean, and Derek.
Yeah.
And as it's sort of morphed into this, you, Scott, and Tyler,
Yeah.
and whoever else might come through here,
Right,
here and
right.
there, Where do you think like that driving force behind that is? Like, obviously, you all are very talented musicians.
Oh, well, thank you.
But, there's something to, not seeing each other for, a good amount of time and then getting back in a room and just making
Yeah.
magic happen.
Right, for sure.
Where does that come from?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we all kind of respect each other as like musicians and like players, I guess. So that I think is huge. Like, no idea is really a bad idea, or like, and not being afraid to, if like something isn't working, to like let somebody know. But I think like all of us having like similar interests in like the type of music we like want to make and like put into the world, and just we all have like different influences, especially me now being more into like EDM and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think it really comes from like a mutual respect and just trying to like all wanting to like make stuff and having the opportunity to make stuff and realizing that it's like pretty rare to make stuff nowadays. And so, yeah, I think that's mostly where it comes from.
Right. Now, I feel like this would be maybe a better question to ask if both Scott and Tyler were here. But
Yeah.
how much, or maybe any of the, members over the course of the
Yeah.
existence of the band, but where do you feel as though maybe there are like elements that you've picked up from the other musicians that you guys have had in terms of like the project, or even from like the 10-piece era, where you guys were doing shows like that? do you feel as though maybe there's like elements of those musicians and the way they play that are still sort of looming?
Yeah,
or things you
I would
picked
say
up
so.
from them,
Yeah,
you know?
I think so. I mean, yeah, Derek was like, he's like arguably my oldest friend now, and like, you know, him and I played music together before I even met any of those guys, and so like that kind of connective tissue will always like, I don't know, Derek and I will always be on the same wavelength, I guess, when we play, just because of that. But yeah, I think so. Like all the other guys, definitely like certainly surprised me with like the things they played or what have you. But also just the people they were in general. I think that like, you know, we talk about like musical ability and all that stuff, but I mean, there's great hanging with those people, and I think that more than anything is what made us like, I guess, resonate and like vibe the most, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. Where do you find, like, at what point were you like, all right, I'm gonna, obviously you've been playing forever and you've probably written your own music, you know, throughout the entirety of your time playing, but
Not really.
but like, as far as Observer goes,
Yeah.
like, when was it, you know, when did it become clear like this was something that you kind of were like gonna pursue or needed to
Yeah, for
needed to
sure.
do?
I think it was kind of like realizing like just like downloading a trial version of Ableton and like kind of messing around with it with Scott and like all of his keyboards and synthesizers. So like being around like music and not just drums like really kind of helped. And then just when the writing was kind of on the wall, okay, Scott's moving away, like how do I fill this void? And I was like, oh, I can just, you know, write chords now and like sound design and all this other stuff. And just it kind of like, yeah, I kind of like combined my like love of like these like big epic EDM pop tunes with like this like indie This Will Destroy You like post rock sound, I guess. And that's kind of like where I draw like the inspiration for the Observer project, I guess. So yeah.
I love that you brought up This Will Destroy You, because it hit me a couple of days ago. I was like thinking about some of the stuff we were going to talk about and like kind of maybe a little bit of prep towards this.
Yeah.
And it made me think, oh, I guarantee at some point I'm going to bring up the This Will Destroy You bit. Because like I think of like the beautiful thing about music and all the people I've met in my life through music is like, I could list out every musician or person I've met through music where it's like, you know how when people are together for a really long time and they have their song or what have you know? Like, I think with musicians, you kind of, each musician you meet, you kind of have that band.
Right.
You know
for
what
sure.
I mean? And so if in our case, I would say our band is probably This Will Destroy
Yeah,
You.
for sure.
Just simply, you know, because you introduced me to that band, and we got super duper stoned one time and just listened to them. It was a beautiful experience. But,
Yeah, man. That's
because I can't hear the name of that band without thinking about you. You know,
that's awesome.
Oh, that's cute.
I'll take that for sure.
But yeah, so I'm glad you brought them up. I'm curious because you are both a musician, but you also work in design.
Yeah.
What do you find elements of like your ability in design translate over into like your ability to maybe design a song?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think like, you know, in all creative endeavors, there's generally like similar, like, I guess, categories of things that make something feel good or whatever in design. And like visually, it's like, you know, balance and contrast, and those things can be achieved via audio as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just kind of those like larger principles of like, you know, the design principles, repetition, rhythm, contrast, balance, line. I'm not going to name them all. I don't think I can. But I think they apply to both, music and design and any really kind of creative painting, you know, whatever it is. I think there's like, there's definitely a through line there of like things that you can draw from. Like, is there enough contrast between this part and this part? Is there enough contrast between the heading and subhead? You know, there's like, you can ask yourself kind of the same questions about like the larger goal. And that has really helped me to kind of like be a better designer and a musician. I feel like they're kind of, I guess, two sides of the same coin.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Sorry,
You're good. No, that was it.
Do you think? How does that help you in terms of, like, does it make you want to sort of create this visual aspect, even maybe when people are just listening.
For sure.
The music,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I think too, like with like my live show and like something I've drawn from like all these like, EDM shows I go to, it's like there's like visuals happening while the person is performing. And I think that can really like add to the narrative of the track, and really kind of lets you kind of curate the experience that much further. Yeah, there's like this visual software that I've really been messing around with, and it's really fun to like just kind of like, okay, what is this song like doing for me, or like how is it speaking to me from like a visual perspective? And just exploring that has been really interesting. Same thing too, it's like, you look at a picture and what does it sound like in your head, like thinking about things like that, I think can just like flip it on itself, I guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah.
No, that is very interesting. Tell me a little bit about where you've gotten this hook for like electronic music. Like, where did you kind of get into electronic music?
Started, I guess, like my first festival was in 2016. And that was with my brother. That was summer camp, and we didn't really hang around the electronic scene all that much.
That's a pretty mixed bag as far as like festival scamp.
Scamp is
it's like you kind of have a little bit of everything.
Jam bands, electronic, what have you. But yeah, like it was cool. Like Jason Isbell was there and the Roots were there, so it's like very like a crazy combination of
tight.
And then also like Excision, which is just like heavy as fuck, like dubstep. But
love it.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's I guess like where I got my first taste of like the live aspect of it. Like these shows were like this crazy curated experience, and everybody's just like really like in the moment. And so yeah, that kind of like scratched an itch I guess I didn't know I had. And then it wasn't until like the following year, went to like Excision's festival Lost Lands with my buddies. And I don't even really like kind of like that heavier like rhythm, I guess, but it's just like the hangs are always just like incredible at these festivals, and so then after that it was like, definitely coming around to it, and then went to Forest in 2018 and like kind of discovered all these other artists that I like, LS Dream and Closey and Odessa and like all these kind of like, I don't know, EDM where I like really vibe with it. It's a little bit more like worldly, I guess.
I think that's the same year that I went to festival for the first
time.
As Electric Forest.
Yeah, 2018?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, dude, that was the year I was there, man. I was there. But yeah, that's really where I was like, got kind of like super into it. And then from there it's been like, and then I think it's 2017 as well. I went to Grismas for the first time, which is highly recommend it, even if you're not super into that whole scene. That'll really like make you like that kind of music. The vibes and like the general sense of like family there is like really cool.
Where's that at?
That's in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
It's like, you guys familiar with Grizz at all?
Yeah.
It's like he does like it's like a festival, not a festival, but like a 3-day show usually every year. And like the week leading up to the shows, he's like does all these fundraisers, and he gives 100% of the profits to 7 Mile Music, I think it is, which is just like an underprivileged they're like serving underprivileged schools, like giving access to like musical instruments and laptops to like make beats and stuff for all these like
nice.
And so he raises a bunch of money every year for that, does all of his merch and just like roast coffee and like has all these different partners, and then they raise like hundreds of thousands of dollars for this organization every year.
That's what's up. Very cool.
And it's like, so that was like, and Grizz is just like a all around stellar human, and makes incredible music.
Well, when you can, that's, I think it's not, this isn't an exclusive thing to music, but I think music can be very beautiful in that sense, where you can use it to encourage and, raise awareness and
inspire.
Things too. You can have a voice while having a voice in a platform, And I think that's just a great example of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Grizz definitely uses his platform of like fame and whatever to like really push this idea of like community and that kind of thing.
Now, what I'm curious, because as far as like EDM, electronic music, that was something that took me a while to kind of understand.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of like maybe me being unwilling to
For sure.
understand it, like having this like musical bias where it's like punk rock or bust,
Yeah,
man.
totally.
You get
No,
out of
dude,
here with that
I
other
was
stuff,
like,
you know.
yeah, I was right there with you, my dude.
That's what I'm curious about, you know,
Yeah.
like it's for me going to some shows here and there, like hitting like a womp romp or something
Yeah.
like that. Even though it's, you know, I know a womp romp,
Yeah.
silly example, but like just like getting the idea or feeling that energy where I'm like, oh, this is the same thing
Right.
that we're experiencing. You know, if I went to like Bloodfest or
Yeah.
Riot Fest or something where there's that same energy there.
Right,
It's
right.
just it was just different.
Yeah.
You know, I think experiencing it was what made me. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to talk too fast. Was what made me really kind of understand it a little bit.
For sure,
more.
yeah.
Is that something you kind of feel? As
Yeah,
well?
exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. Like even, yeah, like I'm listening to more like mixes now of like kind of the EDM acts I dig, but like, you know, back when I was like going to festivals and stuff, it was rare that I was listening to the music outside of like being at the show, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But I think too, like what really kind of made it click for me as well was like, it's like playing the drums. I think is like, I've always enjoyed playing the drums, obviously, and like one of the biggest driving factors of playing the drums is like you want to make people feel good, kind of get moving a little bit, have a good time, and like the EDM is like I guess really embraces that aspect of like the rhythm parts of the songs. I guess it's similar to like a funk band or like, you know, these old school like Stevie Wonder and all that shit, where it's like that's why I like Grizz too. He kind of induces some of that Motown like funkiness into his like super produced electronic music, and that's what I was really drawn to, I guess. So
When I think it kind of like seems like it knows no bounds, really. Like you
Yeah.
can do anything.
there's
with
so
it.
many, subgenres and all this.
And it makes me feel like people are slowly, whether or not they wanted to in the first place,
Yeah.
maybe they're slowly adapting that into a mainstream style of music. Even though, I mean, you can make the argument. I guess that's been happening forever. There's been electronic elements in every genre of music,
Yeah, for
forever.
sure.
But you kind of tend to notice a little bit more of that tone or that feeling in other genres
Yeah,
of music.
for sure.
Tell me a little bit. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this kind of, you know, back and forth between like a punk scene into like an electronic scene, and where you find the comparisons. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but like where you find the differences and the comparisons, how the two can sort of intersect with one another versus like how there might be differences that still need to maybe be like a little overcome, like as far as like people who are only about the punk scene or people
Yeah.
who are only about the electronic scene. you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah, I think it's hard when people are stubborn. But I think, you know, having an open mind and approaching it in a similar way, I think is huge. Like Devin and I and like a couple other people were doing this thing called Space Dogg Collective, where we're essentially kind of bringing that, like recognizing that like Devin and I both grew up similarly in this kind of like basement underground punk scene, and then that realizing that like, oh, it's kind of like the same vibe as like at an EDM show if you're like kind of aware of it. And I think that like, I don't know if people have just like preconceived notions about the type of people that go to these festivals, like, oh, it's all about the drugs or it's all about whatever. I'm sure that's part of it.
Sure.
But
But you could make the same argument for the punk scene too. I don't know
It's
if I've
true.
ever been to a basement show where I wasn't drunk or high at, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I mean, to an extent, I
right,
guess. But
yeah,
Yeah, I always thought the same too. Like,
Yeah.
why would I go there? I don't really do drugs or anything, so why would I go to this festival? But like I said, the first time I went, I was like, wow, this is one hell of an experience, even like just
Yeah.
sober in general. Like,
yeah. I mean, Electric Force, I mean, specifically is like a diamond in the rough, dude. It's like
Yeah.
the cream of the crop. Because I mean, I've only been to a handful now, a couple down in Florida and then Lost Lands and stuff, and like every time I'm just like, yeah, Forest is still the place to be. It's just like this huge like art installation where everything is so considered, where everything else is like, okay, there's a stage over here and there's like some people like kind of working it, where Forest, it's like they hire like just like a whole town's worth of people to like play these roles of like you're like in this like fantasy world, and that's just like, it's like takes it to the next level for me, where it's like this totally immersive like experience, and not just about like the music, I guess, but
Right.
like
it's crazy that it's in
Yeah.
our backyard.
yeah, exactly. Like we just grew up 30 minutes from it.
But ultimately, the mindset, I think, is the same, right? Especially in terms of from the artist perspective. You want to create this experience, both that is like sonically and like visually, important to the,
For sure,
to
yeah.
the consumer.
Yeah.
Know? I feel like that was a weird way to refer to music.
Yeah.
Like, it's very like product-based way to refer
Business.
to it. Yeah. But yeah, you're trying to sort of create this idea of an experience that people are looking for or searching for through music. And I think, yeah, they're both created in the same way. I know way too many people who are very like gatekeepy when it comes to like punk and or electronic music. But
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't know why this sticks out to me, but we were at a show. I believe it was in the main room of the Intersection. Forget the band we were watching, but they had a show happening in the venue to the side of the building. I believe Elevation is the name of it.
Oh yeah, the one that's like underground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or like in the basement rather.
And it was like raining outside, and you step outside to have a cigarette in this place where you can go, and then everybody just immediately resorts to under that overpass.
Right.
And you have all these EDM kids, and we kind of stumble upon it, and we're like these punk rock looking kids, and we're like, oh, here we go, we're about to get ourselves into a mess. And we immediately walk up to this group of people. We start smoking. They start chatting with us. We kind of are chatting, and then all of a sudden, you're seeing, joints fly around. Everybody's just having a great time while they're all outside here. And I'm like, oh, this is just like being like outside a Temple House in between bands, or outside of whatever venue, Pyramid Scheme, what have you. And I'm like, am I looking at this the wrong way?
Yeah, maybe. It's just like
you have these, because you create these like biases of people who are like, oh, you're into country music, you must have 12 cowboy hats and boots in your closet at home, and you probably like lived on a farm at some point,
Yeah.
Stupid examples, but you get the point I'm trying to make. And you have to kind of meet those people and experience that. I feel like there's like this weird, like, they knock heads a little bit about it. You know?
Yeah.
I think it's changing though too.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Because because anybody, can make beats now and stuff. So just like the idea of that, some person who can't afford gear or like this like amp and guitar could like just like download Logic and like, make a beat in that or whatever. It's like really interesting to me. I guess it's not really related to like, I guess it's like music is like the overarching, like it's like there's this huge umbrella of music, and like people who go to music shows are generally kind of a similar vibe, even though we don't really realize it because we have these like preconceived notions about, I guess, like, like this snobbiness or like this whatever about,
Well, I think that comes with age too. We've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but you kind of get older and you kind of realize, oh, what I think about music might not be the most important thing in the world, or might not be the only thing about music. You know? Especially when it comes to like genre or bands, like I only like this, so this is the only thing that's important.
Right.
Do you think, I'm just curious, what you just said a little while ago here just sparked this idea in my head, because I talked to some photographers specifically about this, where there are people who have a camera, that take pictures, who might, and this is I'm not saying this is like a disrespectful thing.
Oh, for sure.
They have a camera, they take pictures, they make a Facebook page with their name with the word photography after it. And then like every once in a while they might take somebody's like senior pictures. And while the quality might be good, they're probably not putting as much time into it as some other photographer who's attempting to make it their living or their art form, And so in the conversation I've had with some photographers, they like, they're like, well, anybody can have a camera. Anybody can point and shoot at something, and like take a picture. But there's really like an art form to it. And it makes me wonder, because I don't necessarily think that's the best way of thinking. Because I like how you said, anybody could download like, a platform of some kind and start making beats. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Similar to how anybody could buy a camera and start taking pictures.
Right.
At what point do you ever see somebody who's like, oh, yeah, I make beats, and you're like, oh, okay, man. Like, yeah, you make beats. Like, I'm really making beats. Or like,
go in the club.
You know what I mean? There's like
there's
this contrast where it's like, oh, I want people to see that this is an avenue for art or an art form, but
Yeah, yeah.
at the same time, like, I know how much work and effort I put into it. You know, is there like,
Yeah.
is that ever like a struggle with you, I guess?
Not really. I think that like it all just kind of stems from like, you know, well, why are you doing this? Are you doing it because it makes you feel better? Then fucking yeah, do it, man. It doesn't matter if it sucks or if it's like you're not doing it for real. Like there's no the same thing with the photos. Like, you know, if your goal is to just I'll take a few photos now and then, or if you want to like learn how to like, you know, really capture the essence of somebody, like yeah, there's I think that's a really important distinction to make, is like, well, if they're doing it, like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to fit in and feel cool? Or are you doing it because it really helps you with whatever you're going through? I think for me, it's definitely the latter. But yeah, I'm doing it because, you know, I feel like I'm like, that's what I like. It's what I'm passionate about. You know, it lights my proverbial fire. Like, you know, so yeah, I don't really think I've never really been like scoffed at anyone for like, like, oh, you're a beat maker. Check this shit out, dude.
Right. Yeah, I think it kind of depends on when you get into that sort of thing too.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was a time, you know, in my younger days where like I thought I had it all figured out, and I was in some band, and I was like, and somebody a couple years younger than me started a band, and I'm like, oh, you think you're in a band?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. You know, like I'm sure that has to happen at some point. And so I'm just always interested in, you know, people where there's like levels or there's tiers to like how much work or effort somebody puts in. Yeah, and ultimately what matters is if you're getting something out of it. You know,
for sure.
Makes it worthwhile and purposeful.
Yeah, 100%.
Tell me, sorry, Andy, I'm not letting you get a word in at all. Do you have anything you'd like to add to this? I feel like I've just been hogging this microphone. Even to you, too. Like, I feel like I'm hogging. I'm talking so much on this episode.
No, dude.
Boom, roasted.
There you go. Oh, it's my mug. Yeah. I have now that we have a camera, I can do this. I have a boom roasted mug.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's silly.
Does it have all the individual roasts?
It does. Yeah.
Nice.
It's got the entirety of the quote in it. Todd bought that for me.
Nice, man.
Wonderful gift. Shout out to Todd.
Shout out.
Shout it out.
Oh, sorry. That made me lose my point. Well played, Andy. Okay. I got it. Brought it back. Here we go. Tell me a little bit about this new album.
Yeah, man. So it's called Balance. It comes out June 3rd. I've been working on it for, I don't know, probably like 2 years. Because I think the first album came out in December of 2020. Pretty sure that's right. Yeah, and even since then, like, yeah, I've had different ideas on the back burner and all this stuff, and just like, yeah, just kind of doing my thing, making music throughout the whole pandemic, and just really putting everything I have into it. I'm really proud of it. Did the drums over at Eureka again with Tyler. The first time we did it at his house, so it was cool to actually do it that room is actually like meant for drums. It's like circular, which is like, I don't know. We got some insane tones, and yeah, man. I mixed it all myself, which was like a very daunting task, but I was super into how I was able to like tackle that. And Tyler's like, I was just constantly like asking him a bunch of different questions about, and he's like, you know, obviously very helpful. And so thanks, shout out Tyler. And he mastered it. And he mixed some of the drums because I didn't want to like get like a bunch of different drum tracks and like put them all in phase and stuff. That was like not something I was trying to do. So he like did all that and ran it through all his outboard gear and as we were tracking. And but yeah, it's 10 songs. Yeah, all of them have live drums on it except for one. It's like an ambient one. I had to have an ambient track in there, break it up a little bit. But yeah, man, I'm really stoked. We're doing a show June 3rd, the same day it comes out at the Avenue. Having Scott is doing an ambient set. He's opening up. Pretty stoked about that. And then Silent Spirit is playing too. He's like GR local, just incredible kind of sound designer. He makes really cool, just kind of dancey techno music. Then we have Normal Mode coming out too, who's like I saw them at a planetarium gig in town, and it was like incredible. I mean, Nathan Coles is an awesome musician, and the people he's playing with are also awesome musicians, and so I'm really excited for them to play, and then I'm closing out the evening, and yeah, man, it's gonna be cool. Got booked for a festival, my first festival over Labor Day.
Nice. Very cool. Can you talk about it? Has it
Yeah,
been
yeah, I
announced?
know. It's Big Fam Festival.
Oh, okay. Tight.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Hell yeah.
Where's that at?
That's like Liberty Mountain, which is an hour and a half north of Lansing.
Okay.
Like straight up, what is it, 31?
Yeah.
131?
That's like Grayling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around Grayling, yeah.
Okay. Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I have several questions that I'm going to try and remember.
For sure, dude.
I have a tendency to forget them, so bear with me here. I first am curious. Thank you. Balance.
Balance.
Why? Where does that name come from?
Yeah, dude. So like the original title of the album was going to be called Inhale, Exhale.
Great band.
Yeah.
But then I was just like, and upon thinking about it, and it's like pretty wordy, and I didn't want to like write that out a bunch of times, and just so I guess I was like trying to break down. Okay, well, what is that general idea? Okay, it's like balance. You inhale and you exhale, and just like, so I just thought that name kind of stuck, and just yeah, I guess it's a reminder to kind of stay balanced within your life. I know. I mean, a lot of times we think that like balance means even amounts of things, where it could mean like, if you have something on a scale and something's like closer, it's gonna tip the scale one way if it's farther away on the opposite side. So there's different ways to stay balanced. It doesn't always have to be in equal parts of everything, and I think that's a really interesting distinction when talking about the word balance. Yeah, so that's, I guess, where the name came from, and just kind of the greater themes I was thinking about when I had this like final album, and I had no idea what I was going to call it. So, yeah.
Do you think based on, how you've put the songs like forward and like ordered them, everything with the album is set the way it is, do you think the listener might sort of, is the goal to like maybe give them that sort of balance while listening to like
I would say so.
sonically?
I think so, yeah. I definitely was strategic in how I like, the order of the album and the flow of everything, and yeah, I hope so. Like, yeah.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about, like, okay, well, first I want to ask you this. Is there like one song on the album that like really feels like when you listen to it, like you can hear, you in it? Does that make sense?
That's interesting. Yeah.
I think that question, it sounded weird once I said it.
No,
but
it's.
yeah.
I mean, it's very arbitrary, but it's also still interesting to think about. Because I don't know if that's like, is that just like my favorite track, or is that like, I really resonate with the Ambient one, which is ironic because there's no drums on it. But maybe that's just because it's like I can do other stuff too. I'm not just a drummer.
Yeah, when writing that, did it make you like? I mean, it had to have been at least a little bit of a challenge to have something that wasn't necessarily percussion heavy or based. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
What did you feel a sense like? What kind of sense of accomplishment did you feel after having created that song?
I mean, a great sense of accomplishment. I think it's really, really cool. But like. Yeah, I showed the album to Caleb as well, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, my favorite track is the Ambient one." I was like, "Dude, I love that."
Nice.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just so funny. Like, I'm a drummer. Your favorite track should be one with drums on it. But,
Right.
but yeah, I think, kind of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone is always, generally breeds pretty good results.
Right.
And like, obviously you grow as a person from that. And so I think that there's definitely some of that in this album, and that Ambient track, I guess, would be a good example of that.
And you said you worked on it for, was it about 2 years? Is what you're
I think
thinking?
so. Yeah. I mean,
What
a year and a half.
when you're writing songs, like at what point do you find that the song is completed Is it
Yeah.
ever completed?
It's never completed.
Like, do you think as a writer, in terms of song, do you think you leave your songs maybe a little open ended so that you leave yourself maybe some room to improvise, or you leave yourself like the opportunity to change it maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's kind of funny too in like this world of like EDM and like DJs and stuff like that. They're constantly like doing these like remixes or VIPs of their like already released songs. So that's something that I've kind of thought about. It's like, okay, how can I elevate this live, or like maybe change the drop up in a way that's like unexpected from the recording or whatever. So that's interesting. But I think, yeah, there's not really much room for improvisation as it currently stands when I'm like performing the tracks. I think like, yeah, performing it's a whole different beast too, because it's like, it's really kind of the exact opposite of why I like playing music. I like being up there with like a band,
Sure.
and I'm like up there by myself, and like everybody's looking at me, and I feel like super awkward. So it's definitely, again, like being outside of your comfort zone type of thing. But also too, like I would love to like get like a live band to like play the songs live at some point if I could ever afford to like pay musicians. But
Sure.
like, because that's like, you know, a part of why I love playing music is like experiencing it with somebody else, and
Right.
like that there's like that back and forth, and like there's like, you know, your the camaraderie, you know.
Yeah. There's an energy to it
Yeah.
that you can when it's shared, it's a
Yeah.
meaningful experience.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I don't know if that answered your question or not.
it did.
think
Yeah.
but yeah.
So like in your writing, there's like how, I guess for one song, right? And this is probably variable based on the song, I guess, but
Oh, you were kind of asking whether or not we knew it was done.
Yeah.
I forgot that's what you were.
but more so like, how hard is it for you to be able to acknowledge that like a song can be recorded and it is like ready to go? Because I know for me and some of the musicians that I've played with, we have a tendency to like be like, oh, okay, yeah, this song's done, and then maybe listen to it or play it here and there, and we're like, God, this sounds like shit.
Yeah,
You
for
give-
sure.
You give it a week, and you're like, what the hell was I
Yeah,
thinking?
no, I
You
think
know?
I think taking a break from that kind of stuff is like very important, because you can think one thing, sleep on it for a couple days. Excuse me. Go back and listen, and you're like, whoa, what the hell was I thinking? Or like, that doesn't make any sense, or whatever it is. I think that like, yeah, I think that's that's always tough to wrestle with, and like, because you can always tinker. You can literally like tinker until you die. But I
Right.
think at the end of the day, you have to just like, you know, just kind of wash your hands of it. And I say this all the time, but Leonardo da Vinci is like, art is never finished, it's only abandoned. And so like this idea of like, okay, I'm going to abandon this album. It's like serves as a snapshot in time of my like abilities as a composer, producer, musician, what have you. And I'll always look back on it and be like, oh, that could have probably been better. But at the end of the day, just like, it's like put it out into the world, like try to move on, I guess, and like just ship that shit, dude.
Oh yeah. What do you think putting this album out has like, or even not even putting it out? I guess putting it out, we're getting too far ahead here.
Yeah.
How about this? What do you think about writing this album and like experiencing, you know, writing it by, well, I would say by yourself, but obviously, you know, you already said Tyler had a hand in it.
Well, no,
as well,
I
but-
wrote and arranged everything. It was really just Tyler mixing some of the tracks.
But to really just have put, you know, it's like, you know, it feels like a cliche, but when people like in construction or something, they'll build a building and then they'll drive by the building and they'll say, I built that with my two hands,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
In that regard, I mean, looking at this and all of this, you know, you built this with your hands, I guess, and your the words are not coming to me right now. What were you able to learn about maybe yourself, just in a general sense, you know, not
Yeah.
to do with music, so to speak, but just like your tendencies when creating something.
Right.
And then also maybe what did it give you the opportunity to learn about yourself capability wise? Like, did you find and discover that you were able to do maybe more than what you initially had thought?
Yeah,
through
for
this
sure.
project?
I definitely think so. Yeah, I think like, yeah, from like the first release to the second release, I think there's like a significant jump and just like there's just like a more refined sound. And I think that, you know, that came from just like, you know, trying to just educate myself on master or like mixing and like understanding like how to mix and levels and EQ and all this like random stuff. Like, I think it's just a testament of just being able to like stay diligent with something and just be like, I want to do this. How can I do it? And then you just like find the resources to do it. And like, so I guess I surprised myself at how resourceful I was able to be and like not really lean on anybody else. I think that's one thing too. Like, yeah, like I have total control over everything. And so there's a part of that's like super appealing. Because you don't have to like, you know, if like, obviously not a diss on anybody with Secret Grief. It was like, okay, now we gotta meet up to practice and write new songs. Where it's like, oh, I have an idea, I can just go, just like put it down or whatever. But yeah, I think like I've learned like, you know, I've been playing the drums, I guess, over the process of the recording. I've been writing the album. I played the drums like less and less, and like kind of really. My passion has shifted a little bit into kind of like being a beat maker, producer, like composer, and like, you know, I'd love to like, you know, compose a video game score or like a film score or something to that nature. And like I really like kind of discovered that I'm not just a drummer, because with the first album, it was like I'm still a drummer. Let me make some like kind of cool loops that like are like tracks, and that's kind of how I thought of it. Whereas now it's like, okay, let me add drums to these like songs, if that makes sense. There's like a different kind of mentality there that I think I kind of tapped into for this release that I think makes it feel that much more refined and like a real release, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. Did it give you more? Well, I guess talk me through, not necessarily through the whole process, but talk me through like your confidence level as like throughout the process, I guess.
Yeah.
So you're like, you know, obviously there's highs and lows, but like
sure.
tell me
Peaks
what
and valleys,
you know,
yeah,
what you're experiencing.
Yeah, I think like there was a moment towards like when I was, it's like, oh, this is fucking cool, and that's the song Emerge that's like out, and that's like one that it was like actually the first Observer song I released back before, like it was like right before the pandemic, because I had like a show booked, and it was like my first show as Observer, and I was like opening at the Loft for these like cool bands, and then like literally 2 days later it's like the NBA is canceling the season, like everybody is like you know, we're shutting this shit down, dude. No more shows, no more anything. And I was like, and I had like just released that song, and it like really took the wind out of my sails. As I'm sure all you guys can relate to that. But so yeah, I think like thinking about those things and trying to like move past all that stuff is really kind of the lows and the lows. But like understanding that, okay, I can make this song better, and like, okay, that's gonna go on the next album. Okay, what? And then like, there are different tracks that I wrote, like, oh, this one was after I went to this music festival in Arizona, and that can go on the album. And then there was like one point where I was like, okay, some of these aren't really hitting. Like, I want them to, like, what can I do to like beef up the arrangement, or like write a whole new song or whatever, like totally scrap something. Like there's one song I totally scrapped because I was just like, it was like I was trying to fit like a square peg in a round hole essentially, and it just wasn't working. So I was like, oh, and then like the new song I replaced her with essentially is like one of my favorites I've ever made. So it's just funny how the creative process can like, you know, it's almost like you have to like be at a low to like see the breakthrough, or like the C like parts, and you can finally like get there. But yeah, it's hard to really quantify, and I'm still trying to figure it out, I guess. But like my confidence level about like making beats and like exploring more bass heavy stuff is like definitely increasing. And I'm feeling like, I guess, the most confident I've ever felt as like a beat maker producer after going through the process of like making this album. Yeah. So.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
What do you think it is going to mean in terms of the next release? Like, how do you feel?
I'm not sure.
Probably not thinking about that quite yet.
Yeah.
Did it maybe feel? I guess a better question might be: did it feel good to know that you have the capability to do this sort of thing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like, I mean, obviously, yeah, it feels like, you know, you always want the next thing that you release to be your best thing. And there's always that fear now where it's like, okay, I'm going to have to really step up my game if I want this to like feel better as a whole than this album. But,
You want to be able to feel the growth.
Yeah,
as a
exactly.
musician.
Yeah. And I think that's like, you should hopefully feel that. Like, in a year I'll listen to the tracks and be like, well, why did I mix it this way? It was like, there's way too much sub or like whatever it is. Like,
But I think that's sort of a note to how life goes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe you're not supposed to know how.
Right.
That's
for
supposed
sure.
to be.
Yeah, it's a journey. We're on this like, I'm on like this path of like, and that's like, with these creative arts, it's like, there's you're forever a student. There's never gonna be where like, okay, I know everything there is to know. I'm done. Like even
Always learning.
Yeah, exactly. There's always something to learn. Always a little thing that you can like do to like make your productions better, or make your musicianship better. Like it'll never end. I'll die on my deathbed and be like, wait, I need to do this or whatever. And they're like have an epiphany and like, and that's when I die. When I have the epiphany of like, oh shit, this is what I need to do, and then I'll just do it in the afterlife or wherever I'm at.
I think the idea of that is still beautiful, right? Because it's like you have this small second of realization and this wisdom that comes through you, and even if you pass right there, it's like you still got it,
right?
You still figured it out.
Yeah,
there's some beauty in that
for
somewhere.
sure, dude.
Oh fuck! I wish I hadn't gotten so enthralled in that thought, because I had a question and I totally lost it.
It's all good, man.
Tell me a little bit about, because this is your release, this is your product, you've created this. And I'm assuming, I mean, you've already kind of touched on this and maybe like, alluded to this already, but like this was created for you to be able to create something for yourself, to be able to like do this and see that you can do it and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
What about it? I'm always curious what the end goal is as far as like an artist goes for how they want their work to be perceived. From either from like a visual, if you're an artist, if you paint a painting, you're going to show it to people.
Yeah.
You're looking for some kind of reaction, whether or not you say it outright,
For sure.
What kind of reaction are you hoping, if any, that this release might have as far as people listening to it?
Yeah, hopefully it's, I'd like to think that even though it is kind of like these like bigger sounds and it's a lot more epic in some ways, that it ultimately can give people a sense of like calmness and peace. I think about, like looking at Lake Michigan for like an epic sunset, that like feeling, or like the feeling of walking through nature is kind of like what I ultimately want to like. That's like the through line between my music and that, I guess. It's like very similar. And Tycho said that too. And so Tycho's one of my like biggest influences, so I don't want to like steal that. But yeah, he said his music was like, the feeling you get when you walk in nature. That's what I want it to like sound like. And I was like, whoa, that shit is crazy.
Do you think you have that ability, I guess, not to steal the quote, I guess, again, but like when you do like walk along the beach, you're looking at the water, you're walking in nature or what have you, like, can you feel there's a sound there to it, or like an energy, like in your everyday life, if you're experiencing something, does it spark some kind of sound in you that you can maybe go back later and create
for sure.
from it?
And I mean, like throughout the album, there are tons of little like, and like kind of the quieter parts. They're really low in the mix, but they're like, I travel a lot to see my brother. Who lives out in like the Southwest, so we're doing like a bunch of hikes and all this stuff. And there's like sometimes it'll like it'll rain or something out there, and there's like I'll record the rain, and I'm like, oh, I could use this to like. And Scott and I both really kind of liked that at the end of our time together, as like when we were really like going at it. It was like these like field recordings, like the environments around us, and like you use those elements to like inspire the music. So I think that's like. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is like, if I'm walking or I'm like, it's not like I'm imagining a sound in my head. I'm like, oh, I can literally use this, and I'll like record it. And then whether it's a cool bug noise or something, it could become like a hi-hat or whatever it is. Like the water crashing, there's just like a rhythm to it. Then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's like a vibe. it's all about just, I guess, you really just, trust your gut. And that's what I do when I'm like thinking about this stuff. It's really just, because for me, ultimately, right, I'm not like, I don't know, I don't want to like seem cool or whatever. I'm just like existing like everybody else.
Right. Which is, I think that's beautiful for music to just exist and not have an agenda.
Yeah.
You know, where you're trying to be cool, you know. I think we're all past the days of playing music to be cool, you know, or like it just makes us feel good, you know, and it maybe makes other people feel good when they hear it.
For sure, yeah. And I think it's funny too, because I was like Devin and I will like fuck around and make music and stuff in the basement, and like it's like, oh, like what do you think? Like play something for this, and I like play something. He's like, dude, everything you play is like so calming. And I'm just like, I mean, thank you. Like that's awesome. Like that's. And so it's just kind of funny that, like, I'm really drawn to that aesthetic, I guess, of this, like, calm, serene, like, peaceful, emotive stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's, like, it's funny because it's, like he's, like, making a bass song. And it's, like, I'm, like, playing all this, like, calming, like, cheerful music over it. And he's like, dude, that's not the vibe. And I'm like, I know. But you asked me, and that's, like, what spoke to me in the moment. It's funny, too, because, like, yeah, like when I play piano and stuff, I rarely play like, I don't like know pieces. I mean, I guess I know like one song or like a couple different themes to like the Interstellar theme or like whatever. But like, you know, I'm just playing as opposed to like somebody who's like a, you know, a trained musician will like when you play something like, oh, put a piece of music in front of me, like these like trained concert pianists are like incredible at just like sight reading and playing this music, but then you just like ask them to play, like listen to what their body and like their soul is telling them to play, and they're just like, I can't do anything. And I'm like the exact opposite of that, where it's just literally all, I'm just like, and it's starting to all kind of sound the same, and so that's why I'm trying to like learn more different like chords and all this stuff to like, you know, expand my vocabulary, I guess, and learn to make different phrases that I guess will ultimately mean the same thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's like we're conversing right now. We're using words to like string together sentences that like make us feel a certain way. I guess that's like what I'm trying to do with music.
Right. I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, it's cool.
One thing I think I can kind of maybe just based on some of the things you're saying, I can kind of draw my own conclusions, I guess, to come up with maybe why. But what I'm curious to is how you kind of came up with the name Observer.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, sorry to just totally cut you off.
You're good.
There, but, well, I'm curious about, because I ask this often of people who have like Zach Harper. You know Zach, right? He has a band, Zach Harper and the Way Back Kids. I thought they were called the Way Backs.
Okay.
At first, when we had him on, and I referred to the band as that, and he immediately let me know that wasn't the name of the band. But yeah, like where you have, you know, a band like that where it's his name and the something, to symbolize the band or whatever.
And the bands.
For you, I mean, this is all music created by you, Cam, but this is a name that isn't your Christian name, we'll say.
Yes.
What, like, was that, I mean, how intentional was that? Or, like, is it?
Super intentional. Okay. I generally have, like, you know, I rarely want to be the center of attention. And that's totally where, like, the name itself kind of came from. You know, throughout my life growing up, I was a pretty shy kid, very introverted. I'm still kind of that way. Definitely a lot of issues with confidence. And so I found myself, you know, I'm usually watching things happen as opposed to, like, participating in them.
Sure.
And that name just kind of, that's how I came up with the Observer, because I am observing everything.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, just like, as soon as I explained it, everyone's always like, oh, that makes so much sense. And so, yeah, I wanted something that like kind of, I guess, captured who I was as a person without just like, oh, it's my name.
Right. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I like, there's a creativity to that I think is just, it's very like under the radar.
Right.
Guess, that I can appreciate that as a fellow artist.
Yeah, for sure.
I can appreciate that.
And then it was like
such a douchey thing to say just now.
As an artist, but yeah, the name came to me pretty quickly, which is cool. But then yeah, obviously there was like a bunch of other observers. So I was like, okay, I'll drop all the vowels or whatever all the trendy kids do, and that's how it came to be.
Nice.
Just try to be a little bit different and not be just one of many observers. But yeah, I was surprised that there was nobody that had it on Spotify anyway. So I was like really able to kind of own it and
Nice.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
I feel like that's hard nowadays.
For sure, dude.
Picking a band name that no one else has. Near impossible.
Yeah.
It's a Secret still shares a Spotify page with another band called It's a Secret. I still can't really get a sense of like who the listeners are for. You know what I mean?
Right.
Why don't you get it fixed?
Well, it's not a band anymore. It feels irrelevant to like have to do it now. And I like the idea that we can both live in unison as the like, It's a Secret in our own respective ways. And it doesn't have to come to that. Like what was the band? They were a local band, I think at the east side of the state. They were called Petty Theft.
Okay.
Did you hear about this
I
happening?
don't think so.
I think I've talked about it before, or like maybe referred to it when we had like a band from the east side out here. But there was a band called Petty Theft, and I'm saying this with very little information, so take it with a grain of salt.
For sure.
But they're called Petty Theft, and apparently there's a Tom Petty tribute band that was also called Petty Theft.
Okay.
Who sent them like a cease and desist.
Oh,
letter,
really?
And we're like, y'all can't use that name because we're a Tom Petty cover band who's like killing it or whatever.
Right.
And so they were like they basically asked them to like not be named Petty Theft, and then a whole thing ensued. They posted it on Twitter, and it was like this whole
Wow.
like can of worms that happened.
Wow.
But,
Well, I went through the process, like, I don't know, it was probably like 2 years ago. I had someone made like a Lakeland like album, and it was like electronic shit. And I'm like, I don't want this on the page.
yeah.
So I went in and I'm like, that's not right. So I got fixed, even after all these years.
Wild.
Yeah.
I wonder.
They were getting more plays than us, so I was like pushing all our songs to the bottom.
Right.
Can't have that.
Can't have that.
Nice. Hell yeah. What's the goal, I guess? What would you like to accomplish if really
Yeah,
like,
for
any-
sure.
any
I mean, I would love.
substantial goals
I
or
kind
anything?
of touched on it a little bit earlier, but yeah, the idea of like, using like essentially the observer sound is something that I'd like to carry over into like music or not music, film and TV. It's already in the music realm. And so, yeah, I would love to score movies and film, sound design, all that stuff. And then, yeah, I think the ultimate goal really, unless I can come into some way of finding within myself to like be okay, like performing by myself, is to like get a band and play more shows and like, it'd be cool to like play the big stage with like lasers and all that stuff. I always dream of like these like full production things, and yeah, one day hopefully.
A lot of work that goes into them and stuff.
Yeah,
that
for
definitely
sure.
pays off with how badass they look.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is like, with like the Space Dogg stuff that I mentioned earlier, like, we've got like a light guy, got like a visuals guy, and it's all like at a very like local level. But the idea is hopefully to one day be able to like, leverage those people's talents at like a bigger scale, and they can really like, I think it's cool like to like obviously I have like this grand vision or whatever, and like I don't think anything these people do would like take away from that, but I want them to have some kind of like self-expression within their like whatever they do, whether it's visuals or lights or whatever, like, they're putting on a performance just much like I am, so like want them to be able to like, express themselves freely in that way, if that makes sense. I mean, there's certain like things we'll have to like, hit but at the same time, like, yeah, I want them to be able to express themselves freely and like act like they're a part of the band. Maybe that'll help me understand that I don't have to have other people up there when I'm sorry, I'm coming to a realization mid sentence. I apologize.
This is great. We got it.
Yeah.
That was great. I do want to talk to you a little bit about Space Dogg Collective and just kind of like give me an idea. I know you were just, referring to it and talking about it a little bit there, but kind of give me an idea of and I know we already talked about it too, so I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but tell me a little bit about the idea and then putting it, into reality.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really all started Space Dogs is like the group of people we camp with at like these festivals we go to. Like we have a flag and it's always said Space Dogs. It's just like kind of like what we call ourselves. And I didn't like come up with that name or anything. I was kind of, grandfathered into the group.
Sure.
And so it just like was a thing of like, oh, we're gonna, put on shows in our buddy's basement, and like we have like 2 TVs set up for visuals and lights, and it's like a whole vibe, and like we wanted to take, that aesthetic of like EDM. It's like EDM on like a more local scale, and we're like, oh, maybe we can, put it in an actual venue and bring other acts in and stuff. And so it's turned on into a full like, I guess, production company, doing random shows at the Avenue. The Avenue has, been like so great. Shout out to the Avenue.
Yeah, I love that place.
Yeah.
We used to play. It's a Secret would play there once in a while.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great place to even hang. It's a good place.
Yeah, for sure. They have pool and games, and the food is really fucking killer, and and just the the people that booked the shows there and stuff. They really were kind of drawn to the shows we booked there. It was like, oh yeah, you guys can do this. It was like a trial run, and then it turned out to be like, oh, this is awesome. Like we want you guys to do more of these. And so,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been a good way for us to kind of learn like how to run a show and all this other stuff, which I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Just a wee bit.
Yeah, done that a little bit in the past. And so yeah, that's like kind of the goal is like, yeah, just to kind of like give people that, much like a local band, it's like local DJs time to like, spin their stuff and, cultivate a vibe of like community where people feel comfortable expressing themselves however they see fit, whether it's they got the flow shit going or they're just dancing, acting a fool, we support all that as long as you're not being a jerk, and like respecting everybody's, shit. But, yeah.
I have 2 questions. They're going to sound like pretty basic questions, but I think that more so why I'm asking them is because I think they're important. One, do you guys enjoy it? Are you having fun doing this and creating these opportunities for people and these avenues for people, not to play on these spaces and this like reality where people can express themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's super rewarding. I mean, it's fun to like, and I have a very, I guess, a smaller role. I'm really just like I'm helping at the show very little, but like mostly I'm just creating I did the logo and like the brand and like do all like the social assets and all that stuff. But yes, it is enjoyable to kind of create that space for people and just, there's like been so many cool shows that I've been a part of over the years as a performer. It's cool to like be on the other side of it and just like be able to cultivate that for somebody else. It's been cool. Like we had Prim out.
Oh, hell yeah! Shout out to Prim.
Yeah,
we gotta get her on this podcast.
Yeah, shout out Prim.
Prim, if you're listening, come to the podcast. We want to chat with you.
But yeah, it was like our event Space Dogs on April 1st. It was a silly name, really, but it was essentially like the flyer was like a dog and a bass fish. So it was like the play on words is like, oh, is it bass or bass or bass or bass, like on April Fools. But anyway, so we had Prim out and it was just really cool. She had like her whole like this like entourage with her, and everyone was just like, this is like the coolest thing we've ever done. Like this is so sick, and we're like super just into it, and like really like everyone they met and talked to were just like super positive and just like. And Prim, I mean, she crushed it too, and that certainly helps. I think when everyone's just like riding the high from her set and just like
definitely,
yeah.
I saw her the most recent time. That's a terrible sentence. The most recent time I saw her perform was at Unruly, and it was at like 6 p.m. and it was just like it was unfortunate because it was quite the vibe.
Yeah,
but it was just like 6 p.m. crowd at Unruly.
Right. Yeah.
So it was just like
not exactly her target audience.
Yeah. I kind of like, I mean, she rocked it, but I felt bad.
Right.
I was like, oh, I wish the energy in this room was deserving of what this sound is, But yeah, Prim's great. I think well, one point I'd like to make is it's interesting to hear you say that because I booked shows for so long and then finally started to perform, and it was very interesting to get that, kind of see both scenes and understand the mutual benefits between both being the band versus the talent buyer.
Right.
And what I'm curious, I guess, did it make you kind of like working with artists or even being involved in some way, like did it kind of, this wasn't the other question I had, I still want did it kind of make you think back to those times where you performed and kind of make you look at some scenarios where you're like, oh, I can see the differences between both being the performer and someone behind the scenes in the show?
Yeah, for sure. It provides being a performer, it provides a great deal of insight because, we've dealt with like some not so great promoters or whatever, and you're just like, you're running around like you have no idea what's going on. And so like whatever we can do to squash that, like right out the gate and just be like, okay, this is where you can set up merch, this is where you load in, blah, 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 blah. Like all of that, like having an understanding of like, as someone who's loading all this gear and setting up, and I like need to know this information, like how can I like relay that information as quickly as possible? And I just sent like this huge long email to like everybody performing on my show, like, hey, this is what we have for sound. We're gonna have merch. Like, let me know like if you have any special requirements. Blah blah blah. Like, we're gonna do what we can to like make it happen.
Right.
And I feel like, yeah, as somebody who just like books shows, they might gloss over some of that stuff or just not even really, understand like that they're not doing a good job because they don't know what needs to be like talked about or.
Yeah, it really gives you an opportunity to see maybe what you do wrong, in a sense.
For
like
sure.
when we started playing shows, especially shows for like somebody like Fusion, or somebody like that, where you're like, oh, so this is what I should be trying to do.
Right, yeah.
And it's not quite, I'm not quite there yet.
Right,
I'm glad I have this experience.
Yeah, for
know.
sure.
And then I guess my other question, which you kind of answered with when you were talking about Prim there, do you see it, like, is it working? Do you feel like you're in creating these opportunities?
I think
like
so.
You're seeing, maybe cultivating some type of scene or seeing people grow their passions as they're.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, we've only done a couple,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very early. But I think, ultimately, it's definitely. I've had, a couple people, and granted they are like space dogs, but like, so like they're in our friend group and stuff. But they're just like, it's so cool that you guys are doing this, like not just like in a basement anymore. You're like, because it's so. They just love being a part of it and like coming out and supporting the fam and all this other stuff. So super grateful for that for them because obviously, we wouldn't really like have that sort of like I don't know foundation to kind of build from or like even realize that we could do this outside of a basement show if the basement shows weren't like packed. So
Ideally, we'll say maybe a year isn't enough time. Well, no, we'll go a year. A year from now, where would you maybe like, and you've kind of, I feel like you also have referenced this. I keep asking you questions that are sort of somewhat what you talked about already. Where would you like to see this in a year?
The Space Dogg stuff? Yeah, I think just like kind of having a foothold in like the other markets that isn't Lansing. Like I'd love to like do something at the Pyramid Scheme or like the L Club in Detroit. Like these are all just like these kind of really cool places that I think we don't really have like enough bass music injected into their culture or whatever. So I think that like we were kind of talking about earlier, like kind of breaking down these walls of like, oh no, this could be cool. Just like let us like throw an EDM show here or whatever. Right. I think that could be sick.
Nice. Hell yeah. Well, shoot, this has been great.
Yeah, man.
Really, I love talking. What's that?
I just didn't know if there's like a timer up there. It's like blinking. That's like, yo, you gotta get this guy out of here, bro.
No. I usually like. There's a certain time where I'm like, okay, this is how this has been going. Every time I ask a question, like, oh, this is how much time it takes.
Right.
So I know if I start kind of winding down here, we'll probably get to this point or whatever.
Cool.
Andy doesn't like when I say the time, so I'm really trying to avoid saying how long we've been recording for.
Yeah, we don't have to say. We don't have to just release that information.
Yeah,
it's not that big.
We've been recording. We've been recording for 27 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Dude, I thought we weren't going to talk about how long we were here.
Oh, wait, we're recording this? You never told me
Guys.
that, dude.
Dude, I left my lens cap on.
We'll clap there so you know to edit that part out, or start editing right here, maybe. at
Yeah, I'll
this
just
point.
start right here.
Cool. Perfect.
All right, well, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the. Yeah, this has been great. I love hearing, like, I don't necessarily get to do it as often as I used to because I'm not going to as many shows. I'm
Yeah.
not seeing people as often, especially through a pandemic. But it's great to not only to see you because it's been
Yeah, man.
fucking forever, but to just be able to kind of talk about these things again and
Yeah,
realize
dude.
like this is still happening. with
Right.
these people that we've
Yeah.
known for years now. you
Right,
know,
right.
It's nice to hear, and it's nice to talk about it again. I think we'll do a little bit of a lightning round, and then have
Yeah.
you maybe promote some of the stuff
Sure.
you've been talking about, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we'll close it out. Give
Oh,
me
really quick.
Sure.
Was you said you had an idea of why I named it Observer in your head? Was my answer anything remotely close to what?
It was- it was-
okay.
yeah. It kind of just We don't have to get into the details of it.
Oh, for
all,
sure.
but
I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
curious.
It was very close to like how I was
Yeah.
thinking. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm
Like-
trying to think of how to word this question because I don't like.
With words.
Oh, totally. Thank you. I've got it.
It's charades, dude. Yeah.
Ugh, wouldn't that be now that we do a video? We just act out everything I want to ask now. That'd be silly.
That'll be
This
a
is not good acting. By the way.
bonus podcast. No
Would've been a bad
microphones,
idea.
just,
I like
just
that. Yeah.
video camera.
Just a quick silent. Maybe when
Silent
we have Trev
podcast,
on, we
dude.
can do
Oh
that
my
one.
god, he
Yeah.
would eat that shit up.
That would be great. you watching this, Trev? We're gonna do that. Shoot. Because I don't. This isn't necessarily like an episode where we've been talking about secret grief.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not like I don't want to ask you a million questions about secret grief. But
Oh, you can. That's all good.
do you have like say okay? So when you get together with Scott and Tyler, is there like when you guys get together? I'm sure there's this resurgence of all this old energy that
Yeah.
similar to how we haven't seen each other
Right,
in a while,
right.
so now there's like this resurgence of
Yeah.
oh, we can just get together and have a conversation.
Right.
It's great. Do you find yourselves getting together and like reminiscing at all, or like kind of getting back together and like when you are with them, do you think are there these moments where you're like, oh, remember that time we did this thing? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you guys are still like that tight knit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's funny too because like Scott being the sober one, like there's like so much shit that's like I don't remember, and
Sure.
just like, and he's like, dude, remember we did this one thing? And like I'm just like, dude, I don't remember at all. And like it's just so funny that like I'm super thankful for that because it's like oh yeah, I do kind of remember that now, but it's like you totally forget and just. Yeah, there are totally moments that we like still kind of reminisce about and bond over, and like we'll even like play old songs, just like starting, just like oh yeah, like '96. We'll play '96 sometimes, just
Hell yeah.
dust it off, dude.
Call me next time.
Yeah,
Which leads me to my next question. Is there a time in secret grief that when you think about it, it really sort of stands out? And then I want to ask a follow-up question because I'm curious. Is there a time in the few little like maybe a weekend or a couple of the tours that I went on with you guys that sort of sticks out in your memory?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the tours that you were a part of were definitely like some of the best times for sure. Like getting to bring people is always so fun and just like adds a whole other dynamic. It's like you get to the ups and downs of this. You get to experience it with us, and but yeah, I guess like and just like. You want like a specific like a specific memory, or are you just looking for like general like?
It could be anything really. Just like in your time in secret grief, it could be any iteration of secret grief. Just like something that sort of sticks out where you're like you look back on it and you're like, oh, that's a fun story.
For sure, yeah.
And then likewise with the moments as far as tours we went on.
Yeah, dude. I mean the the meme of you having $1 million smile will always live in infamy, dude. just like Scott, just like shouting it out, just like go see Danny over at the merch table. You'll recognize him. He's got the $1 million smile, and then you're just like kind of coy, just like looking away, all bashful, kind of like you're doing now, you know?
Yeah, because it's I don't. Not to shock you or anything, but that's not something I heard very, very often until I kind of started hanging out with you guys. And so it just made me happy.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. Yeah. But yeah, I think like, the first tour we ever really went on, like the one with Things Fall Apart was really fun, and I think that was like, it's funny that like the first one was like, and it was probably because it was all so fresh. And it was also, a pretty successful run that, like, it made you really be like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, Mm-hmm. And then there's other times too, like in the studio, like making the sea of trees and like really kind of, seeing that all come to life. Like I love being in the studio and just watching everything. Like being a drummer, it's like a unique perspective because you lay down all your parts first, so you like have this bare bones of the track in drum form, and you have like the scratch, and obviously everybody kind of knows what it could sound like, but it's not until you really all those pieces come together and you do like auxiliary percussion and all these like synthesizers, and you really like once you like hear it for the first time, it's just kind of really cool. And that's what I like about doing this stuff recently with Scott and Tyler. Like this session we just did, we all were just like, oh man, this sounds so cool. Like we all just kind of realized how much fun we have doing it and how much we want to do it more. And so that's why Secret Grief is like doing stuff this year, hopefully releasing like 3 different things. And music is tight, dude.
Oh yeah, very tight. I want to share a memory. I wasn't going to share a memory until you brought up Things Fall Apart. And now it's reminding me because you guys did a weekend with them. I want to say one of the shows was in Lansing, and the other show might have been out more so this way.
Okay.
I honestly couldn't tell you where the other show was.
Maybe Kalamazoo?
Oh, yeah, you might be right. It could have been Kalamazoo. But I remember I went out there with y'all, and I think the first show might have been at the Harriet Brown.
Okay.
Does that sound familiar?
I mean, yeah, we definitely played there before, and so.
But they were. I think I had met them previously on a tour, whatever show you guys had played in Ohio, and they also played. It was in some basement somewhere, and I think a pipe had burst, so there was literal shit on the floor.
Oh yeah, and it was like hot as fuck too. I remember.
And it was the whole thing, and then you guys played a weekend of like Michigan shows with them, and so this is like the first time I'm really like hanging out with these guys. And I think 2 things come to mind about that band in my experiences with you guys. One was this was after the show at the Harriet Brown. We stayed somewhere in Lansing, probably with like Matt or somebody or Scott even. And I just remember like 17 of us all sleeping on the couches and the floor in the living room. And there's like these dog chants that start with the ruse.
Oh,
yeah.
Do
you remember? We went around the whole room with the ruse, and you know me, I'm not the most explosive voice in the room. Right. And I tried to do one, and I don't know if you guys let me hear the end of it because it was so bad. It was the worst of all the ruse.
That's really funny, dude. Dude, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I barely remember it. It was triggered in my head from the Things Fall Apart. And then I remember since then, I think every time you guys, not every time, but there were a couple of shows after that happened where I would be hanging out with y'all and I would just shout, like, during the set just to see if it would make you guys laugh. And I think I got you guys one time, I remember. I've told this story before, I think, on the podcast, but at that same show, during the show, there would be bands out in the garage, and then people were doing like a spoken word acoustic thing inside.
Okay, yeah.
And it was the same day My Chemical Romance broke up.
Okay.
And so we're inside the house. Some guy's doing his thing on the guitar, and he's doing like the spoken word in between, and he's playing some songs doing spoken word. And in like the middle or like in between a song maybe or during the song, who was the guitar player with the big beard? What was his name? I can't remember it off the top of my head right now for some reason, but
I can't remember his actual name, but he had a different name that we referred to, Johnny Utah.
Oh, okay. And
God, what was his name? I feel so bad now
I know.
that I just remember.
I've spent time with these people and I just can't remember their names for some reason. And that makes me feel awful. But we're all sitting there and there's just like this brief moment of silence. And I believe he was looking at his phone. And then this guy's in the middle of his set and he just blurts out, "Oh my God, My Chemical Romance broke up," in the middle of his set. And like you could get a sense that half the room was like, "What the fuck, dude? Why are you yelling during this set?" And then the other half of the room, which was like us and people who kind of knew him, were like, "Oh, that's so funny that you just shouted that right now." Like we couldn't get over it. And those are two things that just popped into my head when you mentioned things fall apart.
I feel like his name is Josh.
Yeah, that seems right. I hope he's listening to this right now and he's like, "What the fuck, guys? I know what your names are." Maybe he's not, though. I hope he's not doing that. Actually, that would make me feel worse.
Yeah, because it was Ryan, Dustin, Cam. And then I can't remember that guy's name. Fuck. I feel bad. I apologize.
Yeah.
Good sir.
We are sorry. But yeah, those two things are just things that maybe it made me think of those. And those are just stories I wanted to share.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful.
What do you think, he probably already had answered this, but what do you think music, in a general sense, throughout your entirety of playing music, not just as Observer or as Secret Grief or anything else that you've been in, if I can go way, way back, were you in Inner City Skyline?
I was.
You were in that, right?
I was.
That might have been the one where I met you from, at the old Madhouse, Battle of the Vans. Y'all played.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You and Derek and Drake.
Right. Yeah.
Way back.
Way back.
Yeah. And
Jack Harper and the Wayback Kids.
in the way backs. Yeah. Jesus. I'm never going to live that down. This is a selfish thought, but I have to share it.
Yes, let's go.
I did a podcast recently, the Way Down podcast, hosted by Colt Snuffer. It was a lot of fun. He does really great work. But he was asking me if I wanted to promote stuff, and I was like, I'm only in like 2 bands, and I have a podcast, so I'll promote. That actually sounds like a lot of things when I actually say that. But yeah, so I just kind of said those things, and he's like, "Do you have anything else you want to promote?" And I kind of started thinking, and I was like, I guess I could just promote stuff my friends are doing. And so I started to just list out a few things. And then like a couple days later, I was thinking about it after it had been released and hearing like some of the things I promoted. I was like, oh, I wonder if they'll text me and be like, "Hey, thanks for the shout out." Just like a selfish thought.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that'd be cool if that was a thing. And then one of the things I promoted was Zach's band. And it occurred to me like 2 or 3 days ago. I was like, Zach never texted me about that thing. He clearly didn't listen to that podcast. Right. What a jerk. He doesn't support me in things. And I'm like, that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
But
it's like, you got our band name wrong in that podcast.
So yeah, now I'm wondering, does he hold resentment at me for having not known what the name of the band was? And now I'm wondering if I even got the name right.
That's right,
Now you're going to have to go back and listen to it.
But anyway.
But it's funny you say that, though. It's like, yeah, because I'll listen to I listened to Aaron DeVries's episode, and I was like, he's got to like mention us or something, right? And he does. I'm just like, fuck yeah. Shout out Aaron. I don't know if you're listening, but I love you, dude.
Yeah, shout out Aaron. Come back on the pod, man. We have all these interviews we did via Zoom, and I'm just like, oh, I'd love to just bring you on and do one in person. But yeah, that'd be one I'd like to do. Tell me, I'm just going to ask you one more question as a part of this lightning round, because we kind of got sidetracked a lot on a lot of things, but I think it's been fun.
Yeah, man.
So I don't think we were asking this question the last time you were on, but I'll leave it up to you. You can do it. Well, nah, fuck that. Let's just say Observer. I was going to say you could do Observer or Secret Grief, but
let's do Observer.
I'll open it up to adding Secret Grief in the idea of this, but you're building a lineup. It's a 4-band bill, you and 3 other acts. You're the headline.
Oh, jeez.
And you get to pick the venue as well. But the acts have to be a band or artist in some form that you've worked with. So this is where I'm tying back in Secret Grief.
Right,
These can also be bands that you might have worked with during your time in Secret Grief. So where is the show at, and who are the bands you're playing with? Your dream lineup.
Dream lineup. Okay. I don't know where we're performing. I don't know if it ultimately matters too much. Let's just say it's Pyramid Scheme, just because it's sentimental and small and nice. I would love the Ladele to play back in like the truest form of the Ladele.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'll take Narrow Arrow. You know, shout outs.
We'll
Shout outs
do-
to Cody Nicholas.
We'll do a split set.
Yeah.
We'll say they're playing a battle set. Cody just has to bounce back and forth between the two.
But yeah, I would love, if it's an Observer gig, it'd be fun to have Secret Grief play, which would be interesting to do 2 sets. The lineup, I don't know. I don't know what the lineup would be. I think Ladele would be direct support. Just because they're so good, dude. I'm trying to think of like, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know who I'd have. I think I'd have to have Normal Mode out again, even though I haven't worked with them yet in any official capacity. But yeah. And then, dude, I love like the Fever Haze. Like throw a curveball in there.
Oh, yeah. Were you at I didn't see you there, but were you at the Scheme gig that they played?
No, I was
a
not.
couple weeks back, maybe a month ago?
I think that was when I was in Florida. I went to Okeechobee. It's another music festival.
Nice. Hell yeah. Well, it was a great gig.
Was it?
Fever
nice.
Haze is amazing.
Yeah.
They rocked it. I didn't get the chance to check out some of the other bands on that bill. We got there kind of late. We saw Whitney Cummings in the same night and just kind of went to both. But yeah, they rocked it, as they do
Yeah.
when they play.
No, that's sick. Oh, and then dude, I love like Greet Death too.
Big time.
Fucking
Yeah.
that'd be killer to have them out.
Hell yeah.
I saw them.
That's a good show. Let me know when that. I would go to that.
I saw them. I can't remember where they played actually in Detroit, but it was sick. That was first time seeing them with Jackie. So I was just like, they sound huge with that just added bass, like or added guitar. I guess technically is what it is. But
yeah, I haven't seen them perform with Jackie yet.
Yeah.
They just haven't played out this way, but I need to, because it's been a while. I haven't seen. They played our release show, I think. Like
Yes.
Pre-pandemic, right? Back in December of 2019 would
Mm-hmm.
have been. Yeah, I turned to Andy because Andy is my reference point for that show.
Yeah,
He was
okay.
there.
Nice.
I was there.
I was there.
That was the first show I went to in like 5 years or something.
Yeah, it was a fun gig.
Had to go support my boy.
Hell yeah. Love it. But yeah, I had seen them back, and it was just the 3-piece at the time, but
Yeah.
it's a great band, good sound, hilarious.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the banter is next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what
They
stood
lean
out the
into it
most?
pretty like very well.
Oh yeah. Which makes you like, I would love to just be like a fly on the wall, or just be there. I
Yeah.
guess I don't have to be a fly. I could just be there at
On
their
the wall.
shows. Yeah, just hanging out. And have what is that? What's that thing? It's a Velcro wall, I guess. Probably to put it in.
Oh yeah, like
a
the
term.
Where you like
Where
run
you
and
run
jump.
towards
Yeah.
it, and then you just
splat on the wall.
splat right on the wall.
It's like one of those
Tangent.
like blow up houses, right?
Yeah, like a moon bounce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think that's really what it feels like to bounce on the moon?
No.
I don't think it would have to be,
No,
right?
the gravity's all. You'd feel
You
lighter.
can wear shoes on the moon,
You can just
too.
jump higher.
You can't wear shoes in one of those things. You got to take your shoes off before you go in.
Great point.
Yeah. Why is
Throws the whole
nobody
experience
ever thinks
off,
about that?
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to be in a full-on spacesuit.
Yes.
I'm sensing a flaw. I was going to go on a tangent, and I don't remember what it was, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Tell me where people can hear Observer and like anything you'd like to promote.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I'm definitely the most active on my Instagram. It's just at Observer Music. So it's OBSRVR Music. And yeah, my new album Balance comes out June 3rd. We've got a show at the Avenue happening that same night. Yeah, there are links in my bio to like hear the music I have released now. I have stuff on Spotify, SoundCloud, and Bandcamp. Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, I'm always making stuff, so Stay tuned, man.
Always making stuff.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you again
Of
for
course,
coming
dude.
on here.
Yeah,
This was
I
great.
love being a part of this. It's
appreciate
cool.
it.
It's cool to see you guys leveling up, and you're a lovely addition, Andrew. So
Thanks.
it's also, dude. I haven't seen you in like a really long time. It's been
10+ years.
yeah, at least yeah. So yeah.
So how we close? I'm not sure if we were asking this yet when you were on the episode because you were one of the earlier ones, but we were closing out. The guest gives themselves some advice for the future.
Oh yeah.
So go ahead and take this time to just for future Cam. Here
Yeah.
is advice for yourself.
Yeah, dude. Stay diligent. Stay consistent. Don't let them grind you down. Yeah, dude. That's all I think I have to say.
Hell yeah. Very nice. Cool.
Killed it.
Sweet.